Oh God, what is that? Help me, help me!
Before we start, if you make it to the end of this video, you'll understand why some trails should never be hiked alone. Hit that subscribe button now, because what you're about to hear will change how you see the wilderness forever. What if the real danger on your next hike isn't a bear, a snake, or a fall, but something no one dares to name? These stories come from real places, real trails, real ridges where people vanished, died, or witnessed something massive, fast, and not quite human. From twisted bike frames and crushed rib cages to bone-chilling howls in the pitch-black darkness, each account leaves more questions than answers. Officials always blame wildlife, bears, mountain lions, tragic accidents. But survivors, locals, they tell a very different story. Let's dive in. July 7th, 2024, Vertical Bar, Blue Ridge Mountains, Virginia. The morning sun filtered through ancient oak trees as three cyclists prepared for what should have been a simple ride along the Appalachian Trail's northern access route. Michael Rivera, 31, was a freelance photographer known for capturing the golden hour light through forest canopies. Quiet, thoughtful, always had a camera strapped across his chest. Brandon Hayes, 34, taught PE at the local middle school. Energetic, loud, always pushing his friends to go farther, climb higher, ride faster. The third rider was Kevin Walsh, newer to the group, more cautious, but eager to explore the trails everyone talked about. The plan was simple: a 15-mile loop through one of the less traveled sections, then back before lunch. They checked the weather, packed water, loaded their mountain bikes into Brandon's pickup. Nothing felt wrong. The morning passed without incident. Gravel crunched beneath tires. Birds called from high branches. Sunlight dappled the trail ahead. Then, around mile 8, Kevin felt it. That pressure. That watched feeling. The trees felt closer. Shadows stretched too long. The forest had gone completely silent. No birds, no insects, nothing. He said nothing, just fell back, letting Michael and Brandon pull ahead. As they reached a narrow section hemmed in by dense brush, the two leaders sped up, laughing as their tires kicked up dust. Kevin, lagging behind, lost sight of them around a sharp bend. Then he heard it. The sound, crack. Not a twig, not a branch. The sound of wood snapping under immense pressure. Birds exploded from the canopy. Dozens of them, screaming into the sky. Then, thud. Something heavy, hitting the ground, hard. Kevin's heart slammed against his ribs. He pedaled faster, legs burning, breath coming in gasps. When he rounded the corner, he froze. One of the mountain bikes was bent in half. Not crashed, not crumpled from a fall. Twisted, like something had grabbed both ends and folded it like paper. The frame was snapped clean through. The chain hung in pieces. The trail ahead was soaked dark red. Deep drag marks cut through the dirt, twin grooves carved into the earth, like something massive had been pulled into the trees. And beside the marks, footprints, barefoot, wide, longer than any boot Kevin had ever seen. 5 toes, no claws, just flesh. Kevin backed away, hands shaking, unable to speak. He turned his bike around and rode harder than he'd ever ridden in his life back to the trailhead. 2 hikers were just arriving. They saw his face pale, eyes wide, mouth moving but no sound coming out. One called 911. The other helped him sit on a bench while he shook uncontrollably. When he finally spoke, all he could say was, "Something's out there, something took them." What the search teams found. Police and wildlife officers arrived within the hour. They followed Kevin back to the scene. The bike, the blood, the drag marks, the prints. They called out for Michael and Brandon. No response. They found the first body 200 yards into the forest. Rib cage crushed flat, like something had stepped on him with the weight of a car. The second body was another 150 yards away. Head nearly torn from the body. The neck severed with brutal, surgical precision. No claw marks, no bite wounds. Just blunt, overwhelming force. Authorities held a press conference the next day. Tragic bear attack, they said. Rare, but possible in this region. Wildlife experts gave carefully worded statements about unpredictable behavior and territorial aggression. The trail was closed for a week. Case closed. But Kevin? He told a different story to anyone who would listen. He'd seen it before the attack. A shape, tall, dark, moving silently between the trees. It had followed them for miles, always just out of sight, watching, waiting, and when Brandon made a joke when Michael laughed too loud, that's when it struck. Kevin moved to another state 2 weeks later. He never rode a bike again. And to this day, some hikers on that stretch of trail report the same thing Kevin felt. The sense of being followed by something that walks on two legs but isn't human. If that story made your skin crawl, wait until you hear what happened next. And trust me, it gets worse. But first, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me, have you ever felt watched in the woods? April 18th, 1995, Appalachian foothills, North Carolina. Three best friends since high school decided to spend a weekend camping in a remote area known as Devil's Ridge, a steep, forested hill far from any marked trail. Jordan Brooks, 24, worked part-time as a mechanic. Quiet, dependable, loved the outdoors. Tyler Mason, 27, had just finished his welding certification and was ready to celebrate with his closest friends. Isaiah Carter, the youngest at 22, worked shifts at a grocery store while taking night classes. They'd camped together dozens of times, trusted each other, knew the land. This trip should have been routine. The camp. They arrived Friday evening, set up their tent in a clearing, and built a fire using dry wood they'd gathered nearby. The sky was clear. Stars filled the air above them. They laughed, told old stories, felt completely at peace. Nothing felt wrong. Around 2 a.m., Jordan woke up first. He was always a light sleeper, any sound would pull him awake. And he heard something. The circling, branches snapping, far away at first. Then closer, heavy footsteps, not running, walking, steady, deliberate. Tyler sat up, whispering questions Jordan couldn't answer. Isaiah didn't wake until the tent shook. Not from wind, there was no wind that night. Something had bumped it. Outside, they heard movement. Circling. Big. Too big to be a deer. They stayed silent, hoping it would pass. The footsteps came closer. Then, silence. 10 seconds of absolute, crushing silence. Then crack. A tree trunk splitting somewhere just beyond their fire pit. Something hit the tent. Hard. One side collapsed. The three scrambled to get out. Only Jordan made it past the tree line. He turned back. In the darkness, lit only by dying firelight, he saw shapes. Large, moving, more than one. He heard something fall. Something heavy. Then, silence. He waited until sunrise, hidden in the brush, too terrified to move. When light finally broke over the ridge, he returned to camp. The tent was shredded. Gear scattered everywhere. The fire pit destroyed, stones thrown in every direction. And in the soft dirt near the collapsed tent, a barefoot print, twice the size of his own. Jordan ran to the nearest road and called for help. Search crews arrived within hours. Rangers, police, volunteers with dogs. They found Tyler and Isaiah in a shallow ditch near the ridge. One had ribs crushed completely flat. The other's limbs were bent at impossible angles. No claw marks, no bites, just blunt force trauma, like they'd been grabbed and slammed. Wildlife experts were called in. They claimed it was a freak bear attack, but they admitted no teeth marks, no scratches. And the prints found earlier? Unlike any bear we've ever documented. The case was closed without further investigation. Jordan left North Carolina a month later. Friends said he couldn't sleep, refused to be near trees, never camped again. Locals started calling Devil's Ridge cursed. Old stories resurfaced, stories about shadows on the hills, strange cries in the night, massive prints found near creek beds with no trail leading to or from them. A warning sign was placed near the trailhead. Unstable ground. Wildlife danger. Proceed at your own risk. But those who know the real story, they say it's not the ground you should fear. And here's the thing that'll keep you up tonight. What if these weren't isolated incidents? What if something out there is hunting? Keep watching, because the next case involves a quarry worker who saw it face to face. And what he described will haunt you. August 5th, 2003, Vertical Bar, Ontario, Canada. On a humid summer night, Ashburn Stone Quarry sat silent under low clouds. The quarry, a massive pit carved into the earth, was busy during the day with loaders, crushers, and transport trucks. But at night, only a skeleton crew remained. Carl Jennings, 46, was one of them. A veteran equipment operator with over 20 years of experience, Carl was known for being careful, methodical, never taking shortcuts. That night, he was partnered with Dylan Foster, a younger worker handling lighting and security patrols from a small trailer near the gate. Their jobs were simple: inspect machinery, check lights, make sure nothing was out of place. It should have been a quiet shift. Around midnight, Dylan noticed one of the floodlights blinking. On, off, on, off. He figured it was a loose wire, made a note to check it in the morning. Just before 1 a.m., the radio crackled with sharp static. Then, silence. Dylan called Carl's name into the walkie. No response. He stepped outside the trailer. A cold draft moved across the gravel, strange for a humid August night. The floodlight over the far slope blinked once more, then went dark. Dylan walked toward the loader area, flashlight in hand. He'd barely crossed the middle lot when he froze. Something massive moved past him. Fast, tall, dark. He couldn't see its full shape, just the speed and size. It ran on two legs, faster than any human, and vanished behind the equipment row. Dylan backed up, hands shaking, and radioed for backup. His voice was barely a whisper. "Something's here. Send help. Now." Emergency services arrived within the hour. They found Dylan standing near the main loader, shaking, unable to speak. He pointed at the machine. The crew moved forward and saw what he couldn't explain. Torso torn open, crushed, twisted, lifted several feet off the ground. No tire marks, no signs of a crash. No claw wounds, no bites, just massive blunt force trauma. March 14th, 2010, Vertical Bar, County Galway, Ireland. The water sat dark and still beneath heavy clouds pressing down like a blanket. Blackwater Reservoir, a remote body of water tucked between low hills and farmland, was known locally for its excellent fishing and eerie quiet. Tom Brennan, a retired railway worker in his early 60s, spent most evenings on the West Bank with nothing but a folding chair, his fishing rod, and a headlamp to guide him in the fading light. He'd fished these waters for over 15 years, knew every inlet, every deep pool, every spot where the big ones hid. That March evening, he settled near the reed beds just before sunset, the air cold and heavy with the smell of wet earth and moss. Hours passed in peaceful silence. Then, just before midnight, he smelled it, like burnt hair mixed with rotting meat and something else, something organic and wrong. It wasn't natural, not from the lake, not from any animal Tom had ever encountered in decades of outdoor life. He turned his headlamp toward the thick wall of reeds at the water's edge. Something was crouched there. At first, it was perfectly still, just a dark, wide mass among the rushes. Then it rose, slowly, deliberately, unfolding to its full height. Taller than any man Tom had ever seen, maybe 8, 9 feet. The headlamp beam caught two eyes staring back at him. Amber, glowing, unblinking, not reflecting light the way animal eyes do. These seemed to produce their own inner light. The figure didn't move, didn't make a sound. Tom's breath caught in his throat. His hands went numb. Every instinct screamed at him to run. So it did. He dropped his fishing rod, stumbled backwards, and scrambled uphill toward his car as fast as his aging legs would carry him. He never looked back. He never returned to that spot. That same night, at the exact same time on the south footpath of Blackwater Reservoir, Liam O'Connor was taking his usual late-night walk with his dog. Liam was 38, worked construction, lived in a small cottage just over the hill. He loved the quiet, loved letting his black lab, Murphy, run free on the trail. He'd done this walk hundreds of times without incident. That night, he never came home. The discovery. The next morning, Murphy was found by a local farmer. The dog was circling a patch of crushed reeds beside the reservoir, fur standing on end, whimpering and refusing to leave the spot. The farmer called the Gardaí, Irish police. Volunteers and local officers arrived within the hour. Just before noon, they found what Murphy had been guarding, Liam O'Connor's body. What they found. The body was discovered at the base of a shallow gulch, partially hidden beneath flattened rushes and broken vegetation. Jaw shattered in multiple places, teeth scattered across the ground. Both arms missing, torn from the shoulders, never recovered. Torso compressed, flat ribs crushed inward like something impossibly heavy had slammed down on him. The scene was marked by signs that made no sense. Large, deep footprints pressed into the soft mud near the reeds. Barefoot, human-shaped, but far too long, nearly 18 inches from heel to toe. Each print sank deep at least 4 inches, as though made by something weighing several hundred pounds. They were spaced in perfect symmetry, 6-foot strides, like measured steps. No drag marks, no signs of a struggle, no blood trail leading away. Just those prints in the body. The official explanation. Wildlife officers arrived that afternoon. After a brief examination, they issued a statement. Tragic accident caused by a badger set collapse. A hidden burrow, they claimed, had given way beneath Liam's feet, causing him to fall into the gulch. The injuries were attributed to the fall and possible scavenging by local wildlife afterward. But one older ranger, a man who'd worked the area for 30 years, pulled a younger officer aside and whispered, "Badgers don't leave 2-inch heel marks in the mud." The comment never made it into the official report. The missing arms. Search teams expanded across the reservoir area over the following days. Drones flew overhead. Divers checked the deeper waters. Dogs tracked scent trails through the marshland. Liam's arms were never found. Not in the water, not buried nearby, not dragged off by scavengers. Gone. And the most disturbing detail? The shoulders showed clean separation, not torn randomly, but pulled with deliberate, controlled force. Like something had gripped each arm and twisted until the joints gave way. The aftermath. Within a week, the locals stopped fishing at Blackwater Reservoir. One woman who'd kept a small boat there for years sold it and moved inland. Farmers moved their livestock away from the fence line nearest the water. Tom Brennan, the fisherman who'd seen the glowing eyes, packed up his gear and moved to a cousin's place 3 villages away. When asked why, he just shook his head and said, "I saw its eyes, and I know what it wanted. It wasn't looking at me like prey. It was looking at me like it was deciding." He never fished again. And on foggy mornings, some locals still report seeing a tall, dark shape standing perfectly still among the reeds, watching, waiting. By now, you might be asking yourself, could these really be connected? Could the same thing be responsible across different continents? Well, the final case I'm about to share has physical evidence that scientists still can't explain. And it happened just 8 years ago. Stay with me, this is where everything comes together. January 22nd, 2016, Vertical Bar, Otago Region, South Island, New Zealand. Emma Caldwell, 33, was exactly the kind of hiker you'd want to be. Experienced, prepared, cautious. She'd completed over 50 solo hikes across New Zealand's backcountry. Her journal was filled with detailed trail notes, plant sketches, weather observations, and safety checklists. Hiking made her feel alive, made her feel connected to something bigger than the noise of city life. This trip was her 6th long trek of the season, a remote trail winding through thick bushland and steep ridges in the Otago wilderness. She told a friend she'd be back by Sunday. Her backpack was meticulously organized. Lightweight tent, 3 days of food, topographic maps, a small emergency radio, first aid kit, everything by the book. The camp. Emma pitched her tent just before sunset on a flat section of trail where the ground leveled out between 2 ridges. Her journal entry that evening, written by headlamp light, Day 1 complete. Trail is beautiful, untouched, peaceful. The stars are incredible out here. Heard some interesting bird calls I need to look up when I get home. Feeling grateful. That was her last entry. The howls. Other campers scattered along the remote trail system that night heard something strange. Not birds, not wind through the trees, not any native animal they recognized. Howls, but not like wolves or dogs. These were dual-toned, one high-pitched, one impossibly deep echoing in eerie harmony. A couple camping 2 kilometers away described it as, like 2 voices joined into one. It didn't sound natural. It bounced off the ridges too perfectly, like it was designed to carry. The sound moved fast, appearing to shift locations across several kilometers in just minutes. Too fast for any animal moving on foot. One hiker recorded 14 seconds of audio on his phone. When he played it back the next morning, his dog, who'd been calm all night, started whimpering and refused to leave the tent. But no one left their campsites that night. Everyone assumed it was wind, or echoes, or maybe wild pigs in the hills. They were wrong. The discovery. At sunrise, a German couple hiking the northern section of the trail passed Emma's campsite. The tent was still zipped shut, perfectly intact. They called out, no response. Concerned, they unzipped the tent flap and looked inside. The sleeping bag was empty. Emma's backpack sat undisturbed. Her boots were still lined up neatly outside the tent. Her journal lay open to the last entry. Nothing appeared stolen or disturbed, but just outside the tent, in the soft earth of the trail, draw marks. Deep grooves carved into the dirt, leading away from the campsite into thick brush. The couple followed cautiously, calling Emma's name. About 60 feet off the trail, through a tangle of twisted ferns and sharp scrub, they found her. The body, Emma Caldwell's body, was half buried beneath a thick mat of reeds, moss, and broken branches. The scene was deliberate, methodical, not random. Jaw broken in at least 7 places, the entire lower face crushed. Both arms missing from the shoulder joints, never recovered. Spine bent backwards at an unnatural 40-degree angle, shattered in 3 places. No signs of a fall from height. No loose rocks nearby. No cliff edge within half a kilometer. Her lightweight hiking clothes showed no tears from claws, no puncture wounds from teeth. Just blunt, catastrophic force. The investigation. New Zealand Department of Conservation officers arrived by helicopter that afternoon. They cordoned off the area and began a thorough search. What they found in the mud near Emma's tent made them go silent. Footprints. Barefoot. Humanoid, but massive. Each print measured 17.5 inches long and 8 inches wide at the ball of the foot. The toes were clearly defined, 5 distinct impressions, spread wide like a hand gripping the earth. The stride length was measured at 6 feet, 2 inches. For context, an average human male has a stride of about 2.5 feet. A running human might stretch to 4 feet. These were calm, walking strides of over 6 feet, and they led from the tree line, circled Emma's tent 3 times, then moved directly to where her body was found. The official ruling, the coroner's report listed cause of death as multiple traumatic injuries consistent with a high-impact fall. But in the notes section, rarely read by the public, the coroner wrote, "Injuries are severe and unusual. Blunt force trauma to jaw, chest, and spine suggest immense pressure applied from above. No environmental features in the immediate area could account for the nature or severity of damage. Compression injuries, inconsistent with any recorded fall pattern. Missing limbs show clean separation at shoulder joints, unusual for scavenging behavior." Despite this, the official public statement was, "Accidental fall during night hiking. Tragic but not suspicious." The missing arms were attributed to likely scavenging by wild pigs or birds. But wild pigs don't remove arms at the shoulder socket with surgical precision, and birds don't leave 6-foot stride patterns in the mud. The Howells explained. Audio experts analyzed the 14-second recording captured by the other hiker. Their findings were inconclusive. The sound didn't match any known animal in New Zealand's ecosystem. Not kiwi birds, not wild pigs, not possums, not wind phenomenon. The dual-tone structure suggested 2 sources producing sound simultaneously, but the tones were too perfectly synchronized to be 2 separate animals. One expert noted, "It's almost like a single creature producing 2 distinct frequencies at once. I've never encountered anything like it in 30 years of wildlife audio analysis." The recording was quietly archived. No further analysis was conducted. The aftermath. New signs were installed at the trailhead within a month. Remote trail. Do not hike alone. ATAT. Camp only in designated areas. Report any unusual wildlife activity immediately. Emma's family held a small memorial service at the trail entrance. They placed flowers near the clearing where her tent had been. Her journal minus the final night was returned to them, still clean and undamaged. Local hiking groups quietly stopped recommending that particular trail for solo trekkers. And those who still hike it report the same thing. An uneasy feeling, like something just out of sight is watching, waiting. Some say, if you camp there now, you can still hear the howls on clear nights. 2 voices, joined as one, moving fast through the darkness. Okay, stop for a second. Let's talk about what we just heard. 5 cases, 5 different locations, spanning nearly 3 decades. But look at what they all have in common. Massive barefoot prints, always 16 to 18 inches long, human-shaped but impossibly large. Blunt force trauma, no claw marks, no bite wounds, no evidence of typical predator behavior. Bodies moved or deliberately buried, not random scattering, but intentional placement. Witnesses describe the same thing. Tall, 7 to 9 feet, fast-moving, bipedal, intelligent behavior. Officials always say, bear attack, accident, tragic coincidence. Security cameras fail, evidence disappear. Investigation close quickly. Here's what they don't tell you. Bears leave claw marks these victims had known. Mountain lions bite the neck. These victims show compression injuries. Accidents don't leave symmetrical footprint patterns circling campsite. Falls don't remove limbs at the shoulder joint with clean separation. No known animal in these regions grows to 8 to 9 feet tall and walks upright. So what's really happening out there? What the survivors say. Let me share some quotes that never made it into official reports. Kevin Walsh, "It wasn't hunting for food. I know what that looks like. This was angry, territorial, like we'd crossed some invisible line just by being there." And it didn't just attack, it chose when to strike. It waited for the right moment. Tom Brennan, the eyes weren't animal eyes. They had awareness behind them, intelligence. It looked at me the way a human looks at another human, evaluating, deciding. That's what scared me most. It was thinking. Jordan Brooks, North Carolina camping survivor, said something in therapy that his counselor later shared anonymously. I heard it breathe, not panting like a dog, not huffing like a bear, just slow, controlled breathing, like it was standing there in the dark, watching us, waiting to see what we'd do. That's not animal behavior. That's predator behavior. But worse, it felt like it was enjoying the fear, thinking, deciding, waiting, enjoying. Let that sink in for a moment. What if these attacks aren't random? What if something out there is actively selecting targets? Look at the victims. Lone hikers in remote areas. Small groups far from help. People who ventured off marked trails. Individuals camping in isolated spots. What if it's watching us the same way we watch wildlife? What if it's been doing this for decades, centuries even, and we're only now starting to connect the dots? And here's the truly terrifying thought. What if the unexplained disappearances we hear about, the ones where bodies are never found, are connected to this? Thousands of people vanish in wilderness areas every year. Most are found, some aren't. What if the ones we don't find were taken? In every single case, there was physical evidence that didn't make it into public reports. Footprint casts were taken, then lost or misfiled. Security footage existed but was corrupted or unavailable. Witness statements were recorded, then summarized or redacted. Autopsy details were documented but marked not for public release. Why? Why do investigations close so quickly? Why do officials push the bear attack narrative even when the evidence doesn't support it? What are they trying to avoid? Mass panic, tourism loss, or something else? Or maybe, just maybe, they know exactly what's out there, and they've decided we're better off not knowing. If you hike, camp, backpack, or spend any time in remote wilderness areas, listen to me carefully. Never hike alone in unfamiliar terrain. There's safety in numbers. Always bring at least one other person. If you feel watched, trust your instincts and leave immediately. Your ancestors survived because they listened to that primal fear. Don't ignore it. Carry a whistle, a bright light, and a way to call for help. Bears hate noise, but more importantly, witnesses say light seems to deter whatever this is. Tell someone exactly where you're going and when you'll be back. If something happens, rescuers need to know where to look. If you see large barefoot prints, do not follow them. Curiosity killed more than just cats. Turn around, leave the area. If you hear howls that don't match any known animal, leave the area immediately. Don't wait to figure out what it is. Just go. Never camp off trail in isolated areas. Marked campsites exist for a reason. Use them. And if you see something tall, dark, and moving on two legs that isn't human, run. Don't take a photo, don't investigate, don't try to rationalize it. Just run, and don't look back. Because everyone in these stories, the ones who died, they hesitated. They tried to make sense of what they were seeing. They convinced themselves it was a bear, a trick of light, their imagination, and they paid for it with their lives. If this video affected you, if it made you feel even a flicker of fear, curiosity, or disbelief, then I need you to do 3 things. I cover cases like this every single week. Unexplained disappearances, encounters that defy logic, evidence that authorities don't want public. Real stories, real evidence, no sensationalism, just truth. Hit that subscribe button. Do it now. January 22nd, 2016. The wilderness of New Zealand's South Island. Emma Caldwell was not a reckless hiker. She was the opposite. At 33 years old, she'd completed over 50 solo backcountry treks. Her hiking journal read like a survival manual, detailed weather observations, emergency contact protocols, backup plans for her backup plans. She was meticulous, prepared, experienced. And that's exactly why what happened to her is so deeply disturbing. Because if someone like Emma Caldwell wasn't safe out there, then who is? This was her 6th major hike of the season. A remote trail winding through thick native bush and steep ridges in the Otago Wilderness, one of the most isolated regions on Earth. Before leaving, she told her best friend Rachel, "I'll be back Sunday evening. If you don't hear from me by Monday morning, call search and rescue." Her backpack was a masterclass in preparation. Everything. Buy the book. She pitched her tent just before sunset, on a flat section of trail where the ground leveled out between two ridges. Perfect spot, good drainage, clear sight lines, textbook campsite selection. That evening, she made her final journal entry by headlamp light. Day 1 complete. Trail is absolutely stunning, untouched, peaceful. The stars out here are unreal. Heard some interesting bird calls I'll need to identify when I get home. Weather holding steady. Feeling grateful to be here. She closed her journal, zipped up her sleeping bag, and drifted off to sleep under a canopy of Southern Cross stars. That was the last thought she ever recorded, because what happened next, and happened in total darkness. At approximately 11:47 p.m., several campers scattered across the remote trail system heard something that made their blood run cold. Not birds, not wind, not any native animal they recognized. Howls. But these weren't ordinary howls. Marcus Chen, a German tourist camping 2 kilometers north, described it like this. It was 2 sounds at once. One high-pitched, almost like a woman screaming, and one impossibly deep like a foghorn made of flesh. They harmonized together, perfectly synchronized. It echoed off the ridges in a way that shouldn't be possible. My wife and I just sat there in our tent, frozen, listening to it move. Move. That's the key word, because the sound didn't stay in one place. It traveled, fast. Sarah and David Wright, camping nearly 3 kilometers to the south, heard the exact same sound minutes later. Think about that. 3 kilometers in just a few minutes, through dense bush, in complete darkness. Nothing moves that fast on foot. Not deer, not wild pigs, not even a running human. But whatever made that sound, it was covering ground faster than anything that should exist in those mountains. Marcus Chen was smart. When he heard the second howl, he grabbed his phone and hit record. He captured 14 seconds of audio. The next morning, when he played it back for his wife, their dog, who had been calm all night, started whimpering uncontrollably and refused to leave the tent. Later, Marcus sent the audio to wildlife experts in Berlin. Their analysis? Dr. Heinrich Vogel, acoustic biologist. This doesn't match any known species in New Zealand's ecosystem. The dual-tone structure suggests a single source producing 2 distinct frequencies simultaneously, which is biologically unusual. The harmonics are too precise to be 2 separate animals. In 30 years of wildlife audio research, I've never encountered anything like this. The recording was quietly archived. No follow-up study was ever conducted. No official explanation was ever given. And if you listen closely to that recording, really listen, you can hear something else beneath the howls. Breathing. Slow, controlled, deliberate. Not bunting, not huffing. Just measured breaths. Like whatever made that sound was standing perfectly still in the darkness. Watching, waiting, thinking. Sunrise, January 23rd. A German couple, Stefan and Ingrid Mueller, were hiking the northern section of the trail when they passed Emma's campsite. Something immediately felt wrong. The tent was still zipped shut, perfectly intact, no signs of struggle, but there was no movement inside. They called out, "Hello? Anyone in there?" Silence. Stefan approached cautiously and unzipped the tent flap. The sleeping bag was empty. Emma's backpack sat undisturbed against the tent wall, everything still inside. Her hiking boots were lined up neatly outside the tent entrance, exactly where she'd left them before bed. Her journal lay open to the final entry. Nothing appeared stolen, nothing looked disturbed. Just empty. Then Ingrid noticed something at the edge of the clearing. Drag marks. 2 deep grooves carved into the soft earth, leading away from the campsite into thick scrub. Stefan and Ingrid followed them, calling Emma's name, voices echoing through the silent bush. 60 feet off the trail, through a tangle of twisted ferns and razor-sharp scrub, they found her, and they immediately wished they hadn't. Emma Caldwell's body was half buried beneath a thick mat of reeds, moss, and deliberately placed branches. This wasn't random. This wasn't scavenging. This was placement. The official autopsy report, sections of which were marked "not for public release," documented the following. Jaw, shattered in 7 distinct locations. The entire lower face crushed with such force that teeth were found scattered across the ground up to 2 meters away. Arms, both completely missing from the shoulder sockets. Clean separation at the joints, never recovered. Spine, bent backwards at an unnatural 40-degree angle, fractured in 3 separate places, L2, T7, and C4 vertebrae. Ribs, compression fractures on both sides. Sternum cracked vertically. Now here's what's important. There were no signs of a fall from height. No cliff within half a kilometer. No loose rocks. No steep drop-offs. Her lightweight hiking clothes showed no tears from claws. No puncture wounds from teeth. No bite marks anywhere on the body. Just blunt, catastrophic force. Like she'd been grabbed and crushed. The coroner's private notes never included in the public report stated, "Injuries suggest immense downward pressure applied from above. Compression patterns inconsistent with any recorded fall scenario. Missing limbs show clean separation at shoulder joints, with rotational tearing indicating deliberate removal rather than scavenging behavior. Cause of mechanism, unknown." Unknown. That's what they wrote when they couldn't find a rational explanation. New Zealand Department of Conservation officers arrived by helicopter within 3 hours. They cordoned off the entire area and began a forensic examination of the scene. And that's when they found something that made them go completely silent. In the soft mud near Emma's tent, fresh, deeply pressed, Senior Ranger Malcolm Fitzroy measured them personally. Length, 17.5 inches, 44.5 centimeters, from heel to longest toe. Width, 8 inches, 20 centimeters, at the ball of the foot. Depth, 4 inches, 10 centimeters, at the heel impression. For context, a large adult male has a foot length of about 10 to 11 inches. Shaquille O'Neal, 7'1" tall, wears a size 22 shoe, roughly 15 inches long. These prints were bigger, and here's what made them truly disturbing. The toe impressions were clearly defined. 5 distinct toes, spread wide, no webbing, no claw marks. Barefoot, human-shaped, but impossible. The stride length between prints was measured at 6 feet, 2 inches. 6 feet, 2 inches. An average human male has a stride of about 2.5 feet when walking. A running human might stretch to 4 feet. These were walking strides of over 6 feet. Whatever made these tracks wasn't running. It was calmly walking, and the pattern showed something even more chilling. The prints led from the tree line, then they circled Emma's tent 3 complete times, then moved directly to where her body was found. It had been watching her, circling, deciding, and then it struck. Sound of papers shuffling, press conference microphone feedback. Narrator, January 27th, 2016. 4 days after Emma's body was discovered, the New Zealand Department of Conservation held a brief press conference. Their official statement, Emma Caldwell died as a result of multiple traumatic injuries consistent with a high-impact fall during night hiking. This is a tragic accident. Our thoughts are with the family. The case is now closed. But the coroner's internal report told a very different story. In the sections marked confidential, not for public release, the coroner wrote, blunt force trauma to jaw, chest, and spine suggests immense pressure applied from a superior position. No environmental features in the immediate area could account for the nature or severity of damage observed. Compression injuries inconsistent with any known fall pattern documented in wilderness accident literature. Missing upper limbs present clean separation at glenohumeral joints with evidence of rotational force. Pattern inconsistent with post-mortem scavenging by known regional wildlife, wild pigs, birds, possums. Removal appears deliberate and perimortem. Translation: whatever did this to her wasn't an accident. The limbs were removed while she was dying or immediately after death. And nothing in New Zealand's wildlife catalog matches this behavior. When pressed by reporters about the large footprints documented at the scene, the official response was, likely misidentified boot prints from search and rescue personnel. But search and rescue didn't arrive until hours after the prints were photographed. And none of the SAR team wore bare feet. The missing arms were attributed to likely scavenging by wild pigs or birds. But wild pigs tear flesh irregularly. They don't cleanly separate limbs at the shoulder socket, and no pig tracks were found anywhere near the body. Within 2 weeks, new signs appeared at the trailhead. Remote trail, do not hike alone. Camp only in designated areas. Report any unusual wildlife activity immediately. But they didn't say what kind of wildlife. They didn't explain why. Emma's family held a small memorial service at the trail entrance. They placed flowers near the clearing where her tent had been. Her mother, Patricia Caldwell, gave a brief statement to local press. Emma was the most careful person I've ever known. She didn't take risks. She followed every safety protocol. If this could happen to her, then something is very wrong out there. And people deserve to know the truth. The truth never came. Local hiking groups quietly stopped recommending that particular trail for solo trekkers. Campsite bookings in the area dropped by 73% over the next year. And those who still hike the Otago backcountry today, especially that specific trail, report the same thing. An uneasy feeling, like something just out of sight is watching from the tree line, waiting. Some say if you camp there on clear nights, you can still hear the howls. Two voices, joined as one, moving fast through the darkness. And if you're very unlucky, you might see the amber eyes watching from the shadows. Marcus Chen never hiked in New Zealand again. He sold all his camping gear and moved back to Germany within a month. When asked why, he simply said, "I heard something out there that wasn't meant to be heard by human ears, and I saw Emma's photo in the news. I know what happened to her because I heard it happen. I heard those howls get closer to where she was camped." And then, silence. Complete silence. I'll never forget that silence. Emma Caldwell was 33 years old, experienced, prepared, careful, and something in those mountains killed her anyway. The question isn't whether something dangerous exists in the wilderness. The question is, what is it? And more importantly, is it still out there? But here's what they don't want you to know. Emma's death wasn't isolated. It wasn't random. It wasn't the first. And it sure as hell wasn't the last. Because when you start connecting the dots across continents and decades, a pattern emerges. A pattern that authorities have been trying to bury for over 40 years. Stay with me, because what comes next will make Emma's case look like just the beginning.